July 12th will, of course, be the ring card in New York, and is headlined by Shakur Stevenson and Edgar Berlanga. Not to mention, the rest of the card is actually really good. You know, you have David Morrell making a return against a undefeated power puncher, so obviously fireworks guaranteed from the start. I assume Morrell's gonna be the not the opener, but like the second fight, and that's crazy, right? But after that, you have Alberto Puello defending his WBC super lightweight title against the former IPF super lightweight world champion Subriel Matias. And of course, Shakur Stevenson is defending his WBC lightweight title against the Shrimp, William Zepeda. And of course, I don't know if it's the main. I think Shakur's the main event, but they're promoting it as Edgar Berlanga is the main event. But Berlanga is taking on the undefeated quotation marks fighter in Hamza Sheeraz as he makes his super middleweight debut. Why am I putting a bunch of emphasis on certain people? We'll get to it. Anyways, we won't be talking about David Morrell's fight because I got Morrell by knockout. That's all I gotta say. But besides that, Subriel Matias, the former IBF world champion, ranked number 2 on BoxRec, is 22-2 with 22 wins by way of knockout and only 2 defeats. He has avenged one of them. And of course, like you see his stoppage rate, he stopped the dude that previously beat him. And of course, number two, who is above Subriel Matias, and doesn't make sense? Teofimo Lopez, and that makes sense. He's the best fighter in the division, especially after people like Devin Haney and others moved up. So obviously, Teofimo, perfect sense. Now, where does Alberto Puello stand? Number 11. That makes the most sense. We'll talk about that later, right? But besides that, he is coming off of a good, nice win streak after his loss to Liam Paro by unanimous decision. Now, of course, people could say that he just didn't let his hands go. He felt hesitant, and it made sense. But then again, Liam Paro is a very strong fighter, and he managed to really much, literally bully Matias. That was literally as obvious as an observation as you could get. He was straight up bullying Matias. He was pushing him. He was holding. Of course, he did lose a point for holding, but he was pushing. He was being all rough with Matias. And Matias, I don't want to say anything, but it looked like he kind of just let it happen. You know, it looked like he didn't really fight back. Like, oh, don't worry, I'll get the stoppage eventually. He didn't, right? And he lost the title. And of course, the people he beat in the 2 fights, both have 3 losses and 1 draw. That being Roberto Ramirez, 26-3-1, and Gabriel Goyas Valenzuela being 30-3 with 1 draw. I think he has a thing for people with 3 losses and 1 draw. But besides that, the now current WBC quotation marks champion in the world is Alberto Puello, also known as the Wasp, or as people in his country like to say, La Avispa. Obviously, I have to put quotation marks because he is arguably has one of the weirdest title runs, I just think, in the modern era. Maybe not the most craziest, right? Because he beat Akhmedov, which many people believe was a robbery, split decision robbery for the WBA title, and then he lost it due to popping for PEDs. So he was caught on drugs, and then he beat Antoine Russell, which is you can't fault him for that, another split decision. But this time it was actually not his. It was actually wouldn't have been him robbing Russell. It would have been the other way around for the interim belt, which then he won and was elevated due to Devin Haney vacating. And then he robbed, I don't want to say he robbed, right? But they robbed Sandor Martin, who whooped his ass and should have been champion. He should not be champion right now. Like at all. And it hurts because I like Sandor Martin. Sandor Martin really whooped 2 out of the 4 super lightweight world champions, and he doesn't have a belt. He whooped Teofimo. He should have got that nod. And he whooped Puello. He should have got that nod too, but they just didn't give it to him. They just don't like Martin. I don't know why. I guess they just don't like Spaniards. I guess they don't want to Ilia Topuria in this sport either. That would have been crazy. But it's not his fault. I don't think he paid the judges, obviously. But he shouldn't be champion right now. And I hate it, man. I hate it. When it was split decision, worst feeling ever, right? But besides that, give me Matias by stoppage. Simple, because Puello is still an elite fighter, obviously, just because he may or may not should have lost these fights. Does not change the fact that he's still a very good, twitchy, somewhat sharp fighter. He doesn't have the most power, but he has, as his name suggests, stinging power, you know? Not enough to knock someone out, but enough to be like, ow, that felt unpleasant, right? But that is kind of weird because he gets tired. It was shown against the Martin fight. He even showed against Russell and Akhmedov. But for little spurts throughout the rounds, he could show his speed again. Like, he doesn't really lose the speed. He just loses the output by a lot. He can still throw like 3 punches super quickly for the most part, but everything else just goes away. So the last thing that goes for him is speed. But he tires a lot quicker than I thought. I used to think he had a huge gas tank, but no, it was just those short bursts of energy. I thought, oh yeah, this man has a bunch of stamina. No, Martin showed that. No, not really. And you know who's very good at cutting people's stamina? That being, well, the Punisher, Matias. Matias has stopped these quick fighters before. Of course, the main one being Ergashev. He's beaten people like Ponce, obviously some other ones. And overall, he actually had a pretty good streak of wins up until losing to Liam Paro, that being the 18-0 Jukinbayev. Of course, the only one that wasn't undefeated was the loss that he avenged against Petros Ananyan, 16-2-2. So obviously he avenged his loss, and then the next two were undefeated against Ergashev and Paro. Of course, he lost to Paro, but it does not matter. He had a very good streak. And the way it works is that Matias fights like he's not in a rush, if that makes any sense. He plays the waiting game. And unfortunately for some fights, he waits like too long. But if he were to start and not stop and actually kind of push the pace a little bit, most of the time he just lets the other dude just gas himself out. Literally happened with Ponce and Ergashev. They kept throwing shots after shots after shots, thinking that they're going to knock out someone like Matias. But no, they tire themselves out, and then Matias just stops them. I think Matias, if he pushes the pace against someone like Puello can't do anything about it. Because Puello, although very good on the ropes, he kind of likes to stay on the ropes sometimes against obviously someone like Antoine Russell and of course Martin. It's not like he's against being on the ropes, and that's not something you want to do against someone like Matias. And Matias, he is under. I don't know if people think he has bad defense or not, but I think it might be underrated, his defense. The earmuff defense obviously prevents him from really much countering, but that's not really, how he works, so it's not like a bad thing, but it is when he kind of just waits too long. But what I'm trying to get at is Matias will win if he pushes the pace. Puello gets tired, likes to hang around the ropes, doesn't have enough power to really make Matias really think twice about entering. And of course, Matias has lost to Paro for waiting too much, or at least that's what I believe. I think he just changes. He thinks, I have to put the pressure on him. I can't just wait, right? So giving Matias by 7th round stoppage victory, breaking down Puello to become champion once again. And of course, the next fight, which I do believe is the co-main event, the chosen one, Edgar Berlanga versus Hamza Sheeraz. Now, of course, the quote-unquote undefeated Sheeraz is 21-0 with 1 draw. 17 wins by way of knockout. He is coming off of the split decision draw against Carlos Adames for the WBC middleweight title, which should not have been a draw at all. They were trying to rob Adames. Like, literally broad daylight robbery. Adames was beating him up. And literally, look at the scorecards. One was 115, 114. What? That's a weird scorecard. How does that scorecard happen? I actually don't know. Someone tell me how that works. 115, 114? Because if it was 115, because you would have to gain a point, right? Okay, well, we're talking too much about it, right? But it's 115, 114. Very weird scorecard. I don't know how that works. Someone tell me. And then 118 to 110 for Adames, which is a lot. You could make an argument for 118, 110 compared to 115, 114 for Sheeraz. It's a lot easier to make that argument for Adames. And, of course, the draw. But I'm not saying that Sheeraz is a bad fighter. Of course, he is coming off of some pretty good wins. Of course, being against someone like River Wilson Bent, Dimitro Mitrofanov, 13-0, Liam Williams and Austin Emma Williams, obviously stopping them, and stopping Tyler Denny. Now, of course, he has a really long streak of knockouts. The last time before Adames, he won by points, was back in 2018. Yeah, that's right. Literally, basically all his decision wins came very early on in his career, right? But he is facing a very strong fighter for his debut at super middleweight. I don't know. I know that Turki Al-Sheikh really likes Hamza Sheeraz, considering the fact that he told him that he was losing on the scorecards. which is obviously crazy. I mean, literally, what they're saying, it's weird hearing a promoter who allegedly only wants to make the best fights and technically doesn't have favorites. Because it's not weird if like someone like Oscar De La Hoya says, I want Zepeda to absolutely run through Shakur, right? It makes sense. It's his fighter. He promotes him. I don't think anyone here is under the Turkey Al Sheikh promotions. They're still under like technically their own like Matchroom, Queensberry. So it's really weird for him to say, I really want Sheeraz and Shakur to win. Because it's like, we literally almost saw them straight up just rob Adames in front of everyone. We're not supposed to really just question that. Like, okay, that's weird. I mean, why would you say that? I mean, literally with the Fury Usyk fight, he's like, I want Fury to win. Come on, Fury, you gotta whoop his ass. And you're like, Usyk's right there. Why are you saying that, right? But besides that, the guy they chose is Edgar Berlanga. Former undefeated, obviously losing to Canelo. He packs a punch. He's young. And although arrogant and I guess you could say has a big ego, he's still hungry. And that's a bad thing for Sheeraz. And of course, Berlanga is 23-1 with 18 wins by way of knockout. Of course, he is coming off of the first round stoppage victory against Jonathan Gonzalez Ortiz, 20-0-1. Now, of course, there is a big, I guess, asterisk, as people would say. I don't know my grammar. But he went a decade without fighting. And he came back to not the best competition, and he wasn't like the most conditioned fighter, if that makes any sense, right? So there's a big thing on there, big amounts of salt. But besides that, he lost to Canelo Alvarez for the not undisputed titles. Obviously, they stripped him for Skull, which then he beat him to become undisputed again. But before he then beat Patrick McCrory by 6-round stoppage victory, which then ended the 5-fight knockout drought. Of course, Berlanga was known as having, I think, one of the longest knockout streaks in boxing. I think it was 16 fights, all of them in the first round. He knocked them all out. He then went on a 5-fight knockout drought. So obviously there's a lot of questions for Berlanga. Where did the power go? Where did this go? Right? But of course, Berlanga, he's a very durable fighter. He's a huge dude. That's the thing. He's a huge guy. And Sheeraz, although very much tall himself, is more of a lanky fighter. Not the most built, he's not built like a tank like Berlanga. And that's a bad thing, because Berlanga can straight up just bully Sheeraz. Sheeraz is known to fight on the outside. He fights on the outside. He has very nice shots. He likes to cover up in a earmuff defense, which of course blocks most attacks, but prevents them from really exploding, right, while in that defense. Berlanga is known to attempt to break through those shells, and I think he can with this one. Berlanga is strong. He has a pretty good jab. He's not afraid to trade. That's the thing. He's not afraid to trade. He wasn't afraid to trade with Canelo, and he's definitely most likely not going to be afraid to trade with Sheeraz. So the way it's going to go is simple. Actually, it's not that simple, because obviously with Turkey Al Sheikh straight up just backing Hamza Sheeraz to beat Berlanga, I'm not saying Berlanga needs a knockout, but considering how close they were to robbing Adames, he basically needs a knockout to win. And can he get it? Yes. Yes, he can. Give me Berlanga continuing his knockout streak by stopping Hamza Sheeraz in the 10th round. Sheeraz is a very much sharp fighter, but he doesn't have the highest input. Obviously, he doesn't have the highest output. Obviously, Adames managed to not only outwork him, but just straight up was doing better than him in the fight. Of course, in exchanges, Berlanga is very much vulnerable. But then again, the same thing can be said about Sheeraz. But Berlanga, I think in this fight, he's going to look to try to bully Sheeraz, break down Sheeraz, close the distance, and get the stoppage victory in the 10th round. I think it's just going to be something of just size. Berlanga is not only the natural super middleweight, he's a very big middleweight. He's a very big super middleweight too. So it's not like he can't bully him. That's the thing. Berlanga will cut down the distance and cut down Hamza Sheeraz in 10 rounds. Now, of course, the main event of the evening, Shakur Stevenson versus William Zepeda the Shrimp. Now, of course, William Zepeda, aka the Shrimp, is 33-0 with 27 wins by way of knockout. Of course, he is coming after the 2 fights against Tevin Farmer. Split decision, then majority decision, which obviously people are saying is aging not the best because Schofield obviously is coming after the first round stoppage victory against Tevin Farmer. But it's 2 different types of fighters fighting in 2 completely different types of ways. So obviously the outcomes will be, well, different. But besides that, he has had some very much good wins, of course, being Mercedo Gesta, Giovanni Cabrera, Maxi Hughes obviously is one of his better wins, weirdly enough. And Zepeda is obviously known to have not only throw the most punches, I think, in boxing in general, but also landing the most in boxing. So when we're talking about a literal machine, this is as close to a robot as we can get. And of course, he's taking on the champion, Shakur Stevenson, who is known for his defense. I think he gets hit the least out of like anyone in boxing, especially in lightweight. So obviously, you're having someone who has taken the least amount of punishment versus the guy who dishes out the most punishment. So this is as basically as polar opposite as you can get, literally yin and yang. And this will be either, there's only 2 ways this fight's going to go. I don't think it's going to be a close fight. It's either going to be Shakur Stevenson, complete domination over 12 rounds, shutting down Zepeda's offense, or Zepeda will just completely run through Shakur Stevenson like he's nothing. Literally, there's only 2 ways. Besides that, Shakur Stevenson is 23 wins, no losses, and 11 wins by way of knockout. Of course, he is coming off of the 9th round stoppage win against the not even late replacement. It was literally last minute. Josh Padley in the 9th round. So obviously, not the best win. He was undefeated, but you know. He also beat Artem Haratunian, 12-1, former bronze medal Olympian. Obviously, you can't be current bronze medal Olympian. He beat Edwin De Los Santos in the weirdest fight ever by not throwing punches and running. Yeah, we're going through this again. Yeah, he ran. We know that. He also beat Yoshino and Robson Conceição and Oscar Valdez. Of course, there's others, but those are the most notable wins. Of course, Shakur Stevenson. Look, here's the thing. People call him a runner. But I think the most obvious one in running was the De Los Santos fight. That was as obvious you could get in terms of literally running away from your opponent. But Padley, Haratunian, Conceição, Valdez, and of course Yoshino, he wasn't running. Of course, he is a mover. That's the thing. He's a mover. He moves around the ring. But he has not ran from an opponent yet, in a while anyways. But he might against Zepeda. I mean, we literally saw how much he didn't want to get close to De Los Santos. I don't think he wants to get close with Zepeda either, because Tevin Farmer managed to survive the fight, because Zepeda, although has a very much high knockout ratio, most of the time, not even most of the time, literally all the time, well, it is most of the time, but most of the time, it's through the body. And of course, Tevin Farmer, they like to say that he has an iron body. People have iron granite chins. He has an iron body, literally. Can take punishment to the body and just go about his business, right? Shakur does not have such luxuries in his arsenal. Matter of fact, he has also weak hands. I think he heard it last time. So obviously, Shakur most likely will not look to exchange with Zepeda, nor even get close to his range. Now the problem is, can he avoid Zepeda throughout the rounds? Because Zepeda can cut the ring very much nicely. He's done it against Farmer. He's done it against Hughes. He's done it against Cabrera. But the problem is, none of them were really movers. Or at least not like Shakur. Now here's the thing. Now here's where Turki Al-Sheikh might play a factor into it. Because Turki literally said he hates Tom and Jerry fights. AKA 1 chases and 1 runs. Obviously shown against Canelo versus Skull, which he did not like. He's saying that he does not like to see it. And assuming Shakur does to Zepeda as he did to De Los Santos, that actually might hurt him a lot more than actually... That's going to hurt him a lot, considering he doesn't like that, and obviously probably not going to score it for him anyways. So Shakur most likely has to stay in the pocket for some time. You never know, and they might give him the fight. But Shakur has very nice combos. He has actually really underrated body shots. I think I forgot to say that. And Zepeda has been hurt. But that was against Tevin Farmer, who's a pretty bulky dude. I mean, he whips his punches, literally. And he kind of hurt Zepeda. Shakur cannot do that. Shakur will have to constantly be on the move, which he's obviously not afraid to do. He's obviously shown that. And he will have to at least throw up some punches more than usual, right? Now, of course, I'm going in circles, and that's because I'm going through the scenarios. What's more likely? Shakur avoiding Zepeda, managing to fight on the outside throughout the whole fight, or Zepeda managing to cut the distance and landing his body blows? I'm going to say it. I don't care. I think there's going to be an upset. Give me William Zepeda by 6th round stoppage win. That's right. Give me Zepeda stopping Shakur Stevenson to win the title. I believe Zepeda can cut the distance, and his best weapon is his body work, which of course Shakur has one of the best defenses in all of boxing. But is it the best against the best offense in lightweight? Right? I don't say it's the best offense in boxing, but it's one of the highest output, highest connect offenses in boxing. I don't think his defense can hold up. Farmer defense can hold up. Cabrera's defense couldn't keep up. I don't think Shakur's defense can keep up. And without an iron body, Shakur will succumb to the damages and be stopped. Give me Zepeda by 6th round stoppage victory. But anyways, who do you guys have winning these fights? I'd love to hear your opinions down below. But anyways, I hope to catch you in the next one.